Huskers add their 24th verbal commitment this week. Offensive lineman Preston Taumua comes in as an offensive lineman. He's the 4th O-lineman now in the class. Second highest ranked guy Nebraska's added. You look at this O-line class, though, it's starting to really shape up here. You have Taumua. You obviously have Gibson Pyle, who's come on. And then the two guys from camp, Landon Davison and Jake Peters. So that they've got 4. I think my question right now is there isn't like a defined tackle body. There's guys that could play tackle.
Taumua can play.
And he's 6'3.5". I'd be curious what Nebraska has, Matt, if our height is accurate.
I noticed Brian Munson had him as an offensive tackle in his story. I watched his film. And he played tackle. He plays tackle on his high school team. What I noticed is I thought about something that when we were covering camp last summer, I was watching Raiola talk to the guys, and one of the things he said really struck me. He was saying, and he was very forceful about, we take the fight to them. We throw the first punch. That's what Raiola told his guys. We throw the first punch. Well, if you watch this guy, he throws the first punch. Taumua is really aggressive. I talked to Dominic about him. Dominic Raiola knows all about him, and he said, "Yeah, this is the kind of kids that Donovan's got to keep getting. Guys, throw the first punch."
This is a big win for Donovan Raiola.
It is.
It really
is.
He's gotten some guys here, but I think Ben Scott would be the one in the transfer portal where you're like, "Yep, he got him here." Yeah. But this is one where you can't say, "Oh, he got helped by this coach," or it was a Texas kid that. The other coaches helped in Texas with him. This was his guy through his relationships in Hawaii.
Yeah. I know how we are in the world, and I know how we are in the media. We're very impatient. But the offensive line now should begin to take on Donovan's personality and really show his teachings. Just now. In a sense, it's even a little early to judge him. It's still a little early because he hasn't really gotten his own guys in here, right? I think he's done a good job of kind of converting the holdovers, the guys that he inherited. But it's just now that we're seeing the type of recruit that he wants. And these guys are fighters. If you look at these guys he's recruited, they're all kind of gritty fighters. And that's kind of Donovan's personality. That was certainly his brother's personality.
Seems like a different body type too, where maybe they're not necessarily as caught up in the size and the height where those measurables aren't as much of a priority as the things you mentioned with the toughness and the physicality and bringing the fight.
Yeah, bringing the fight is a big thing.
I think it's almost safe to say Nebraska got almost too carried away with emphasizing height on O-line recruiting. To the point where it was like they're getting like 7-footers. It was like got to a point where the football team was taller than the basketball team at Nebraska.
Yeah, you kind of understand it. I don't want to be too critical of it because in the Big Ten, you see it every weekend. You see just mammoth.
You got to have athletes first.
Mm-hmm. You do, but you see mammoth offensive linemen throughout the Big Ten. So I get it. I get the mentality.
It goes back though to what we were talking about Spencer Long in the that's the kind of guy you want to build and project. Yeah. Sam Sledge, I look at him. That's the kind of guy like 260, 270 that you can put the right kind of weight on. And I felt like in the previous regime, their plan was we're going to find these 6'8", 6'9", 6'7" guys, and we're going to let strength and conditioning and nutrition just pump these guys up, and we're just going to create just giants. Mm-hmm. And they created giants, but they didn't move very well.
Yep, that's the thing.
Couldn't stay in front of anybody.
Yeah, even Charles Thompson. I was on a radio interview with Charles Thompson, Casey's dad, and he didn't say much at all about Nebraska, but he did kind of say, let one thing slip. He said, well, the one thing about the offensive line is they didn't move their feet very well. And they didn't. That's true.
And the metrics don't lie. They are, out of all Power 5 teams the last 2 years, Nebraska ranks dead last on Pro Football Focus for pass blocking on the overall grade.
That's telling.
They've had statistically the worst tackle play in Power 5 football in terms of hurries and, QB hits, those types of metrics.
We talked about it a lot.
We
Donovan doesn't. You saw what Donovan.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
he doesn't like it. In Belton, Texas, he made it pretty clear to me he didn't like our criticism.
And was that all their fault? I mean, did Whipple help those guys out? I think
no, he didn't.
And that's when you're giving up on the run. I mean, the minute Frost was fired, like any commitment to the run just kind of left the building. I mean, they ran it against Indiana in that game, but they almost wore out Anthony Grant in that game. He wasn't the same the rest of the year.
No,
Mickey wanted to run it. Remember the press conferences? But Mickey didn't have the power really to tell Whipple, this is what we're doing.
Whipple was doing his thing.
Yeah.
He didn't care what anybody else thought.
Whipple had to come. I mean, Whipple coached a game from a wheelchair, called plays in a wheelchair after he got I mean, he was going to call plays at Nebraska his way, come hell or high water.
Who's the coach that coached the first few plays of that drive?
Steve Cooper, now the offensive coordinator of Maine, and they
actually look pretty good.
I mean, and I can tell you this, like he was transitioning them back with Logan to like what they had been doing with Frost's offense, which worked. I mean, they knew how to run plays and get yards under Scott Frost. That was like not the problem. Obviously, there were so many other things why it didn't work here. But Whipple's offense was more, hey, throw it deep to Trey Palmer,
and then sometimes it did work. It's like Whipple to defend him.
It worked against Iowa.
Yeah. If I was Johnny Cochran, I'd go right to the Iowa game.
It dang near worked against Purdue. I mean, that if they would have won that Purdue game,
right? And they should.
They should have.
Well,
kind of should have.
Purdue had to go for a crazy fourth down.
They could not get a stop.
If Purdue doesn't get that fourth down late, then they give Nebraska the ball back. Nebraska wins the game.
Yeah, they had Maccabee going, and you have when you
Trey
got
Palmer
O'Connell,
had like one of the best receiving games in program history, and they lost.
Yeah, Aiden O'Connell was pretty good in that game.
He was.
Remember when we were up there? I mean, we're up in the press box. He's making freaky throws.
And the fact that Maccabee kid, they were down to like their 4th-string running back, and he just comes in and just,
he went for like 200.
He's not their 4th-string running
they
back
could
anymore.
not tackle him.
He's not their 4th-string.
Look at Whipple. There's the whip.
He about got 1,000. Here's a stat for you, Rob. Last time Purdue's had a 1,000-yard rusher.
I already said this
Yeah.
to you, so I can't give it away.
Shoot.
You nailed it. Sean nailed it.
I'm trying to think, who's the big dude?
Altstadt?
No. All right, I give who?
Just
2008. They haven't had a 1,000
Nebraska big.
They haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher for 15 years.
Who was it? You know?
I don't know who it was.
Okay.
Maccabee had almost 1,000 last year. He almost got 1,000. He'll get 1,000 this year. That guy's tough. He's a tough runner.